Welcome to the pod, guys. Today we're going to dive straight in. Pitso Mosimane, no longer Al Ahly coach. We want to find out how this all transpired. 3 CAF Champions League finals in a row, 2 titles, lots to unpack. Joining me are the regulars, Courtney Freese, our resident former PSL winner, and the holder of the Spirit Cup. You'll hear more about that as the pod goes on. We have Alasdair Howorth, our cross-platform reporter. Ali, how are you doing? We have Francis Nkwain, African football expert, sports media executive, smartest, suavest looking guy on the east and west coast of Africa. That's how good this guy is. Welcome to the pod. And we have a very special guest. Courtney Freese says I have to give him the big sell, so drum roll, please. Award-winning reporter, the man with his finger on the pulse of African football. He travels from Cape Town to Cairo. The all-knowing oracle, Lorenz. Köhler, welcome to the show.
I'm part of the furniture here, so I don't know why I need an introduction anymore. This is what is like my 6th or 7th prior. I'm tired of these guys already.
You know what I like? Trevor Noah, when he started on The Daily Show, he was a correspondent, and then he got to take over the mantelpiece. So maybe we're getting you ready for that.
100%. You can just say the new host, the host elect. The first thing I'm gonna do as executive producer is fire Zayn.
Listen, we'll do a straw poll on that before we get talking Pitso, because he's obviously out of a job. Those in favor of Zayn continuing to Zoom call, put your hands up now.
No, you.
I prefer not to speak.
I got 2 votes. Those who cannot see.
I don't want no Durban people in charge.
Okay, so I saw Francis's hand go up. Lorenz very magnanimously voted for me. All those in favor of Lorenz to host the show going forward, put your hands up. Oh my word!
Had his
it
time.
is unanimous. This is a very African vote. People voted twice. So you know what I mean? Well, guys, since this is my last show, anyway, listen, no worries. Lorenz, you are welcome anytime, and you know that, brother. But listen, let's get serious for a minute. Pitso Mosimane, the talented, the mastermind, the man who's done fantastic things at Al Ahly, and before that at Sundowns, is no longer at the Egyptian Giants. Before we start to unpack the why, could you recap some of his highlights at the club, what he achieved, and how significant this was, given he was the first sub-Saharan African to coach the team?
So looking from the beginning, I'll never forget it. I mean, I don't think anybody would forget it. I remember waking up one morning, getting a WhatsApp saying, Pitso's joining Al Ahly. And like I said before we started the show, it was like literally a week before he signed a new long-term contract. And I was like, guys, stop talking nonsense. You know what I mean? Al Ahly is never going to hire an African manager. Pitso is never going to leave Sundowns. Just forget about it. And then an hour later, everything just changed. Pitso resigned. I think the whole African media space just turned upside down. It was like one of the most blockbuster moves that we've ever seen on the continent. And a match made in heaven. Finally, a club that meets Pitso's, humongous ambitions. And a club that's seeking continental glory for the first time in almost a decade, 7 years. So obviously, he got the club in the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League with Rene Weiler having led them there, and then COVID, being one of the main reasons that he resigned, the Swiss manager. So the league was already wrapped up, so you can't attribute the league title success to Pitso really, and I'm sure he does it as well. He just took pictures with the trophies, like you said. But, getting Wydad in the semi-final and then a Cairo derby in the final, I mean, geez, that's as big as it gets. Like, that's the 2 toughest opponents you can probably get on the continent for Al Ahly. Morocco is a destination they're notoriously, bad travelers. So that was definitely you can have to give him credit for winning that title. And then, the second title, I mean, beating Kaiser Chiefs, that had a transfer ban, that upheaval, Gavin Hunt getting sacked, Stuart Baxter's first game in charge in the final, maybe the easiest final that he's ever played in the Champions League, and possibly that Al Ahly's also played, also with a red card and things like that. But at the same time, it was an amazing achievement because he was getting so much criticism in the group stage. I think he lost to Simba. They drew with Vita. They were literally, I remember sitting with him and we were watching highlights of that campaign. And he was like, this was the moment where we thought we were out of this tournament. And I think they scored like a 90th minute header or something against Vita to draw the game 2-2. And they said after that game in the dressing room, they said to each other, we've got a lifeline. We're going to go on and win this tournament. And that speaks to the mentality that he instilled in that team. They never switched off. They never had holiday. It was just one thing after the other. And from that Sundowns treble winning team, when he resigned and then he walked straight into, the semi-finals. He never had a holiday. His technical team never had a holiday. And then the Al Ahly team also just carried on season after season. Club World Cup, AFCON, Arab World Cup, Arab Cup, all these challenges that he faced. And I think from that perspective, it deserves a major applause. 2 bronze medals, back-to-back Club World Cups, CAF Super Cup, I think the Egypt Cup as well. The only, stain on his stint is not winning the Egyptian Premier League. But maybe he would have won it this year if he continued, but we'll never know. So 20 months, 5 trophies, 2 bronze medals. He leaves as the second longest serving manager of the club in 100 years. And possibly one of the most successful managers in the history, behind Manuel Jose. So he's left his imprint on the history of the club, and nobody can take that away from him.
So Lorenz, if I may, you sound like a very proud South African man when you talk about Pitso. Do you think his story back home in South Africa is one of success, one of that makes the nation feel proud of what it is he's achieved? And do you think, knowing Pitso as you know him, he himself would be quite proud of what he was able to achieve?
Pitso's proud of everything that he's achieved, honestly. Like, he's proud of the trophy, the MTN 8 trophy, or Super 8 trophy won at Super Sport. I don't think he holds any trophy higher than the other. He's one of those guys, he's just always on to the next one, though, but he always refers to where he came from. Like, for example, he says one thing leads to the other. If it wasn't for this trophy or this opportunity, he wouldn't, get to the point where he is today. So obviously, I think he's proud of his journey more than, his stint at Al Ahly, so to say. He knows he's one of the most successful, if not the most successful African coach of all time, but he doesn't need to say that because we say it for him all the time, you know what I mean? But coming back to the pride factor in South Africa, I'm very immersed in media, and there is a little bit of a divide. I think mainly Sundowns fans, and there's a bit of, I wouldn't say sourness, but he hasn't really enjoyed the best of relationship with Sundowns. I can't say completely, but there's certain individuals that he's, targeted, and many fans don't have the nuanced understanding of that his problem isn't with Sundowns, it's with a few individuals. So they are, I would say, 10% of South African fans who are like, they're happy, in inverted commas, that he's, parted ways with Al Ahly, because there's a term in South African, you call it nar. They nar of his success. It's basically they sour, they hate seeing him succeed, But for the majorities, they couldn't be prouder. They see him as like, in simple terms, Pitso Mosimane is the South African superstar of our generation. We don't have a Lionel Messi. We don't have a Cristiano Ronaldo or Penny McCarthy right now. So Pitso is that figure of aspiration that, you know, a black man can do this, a South African man can do this. And it is possible to achieve success, even though, you know, our football is in dire straits right now. I mean, I just came from a press conference of Bafana coach Hugo Brewers. He, he went off today, and it was like, he was like basically sitting with the mirror, and he was like, look at you guys, look at your football. You know what I mean? And in that whole, you know, thing of South African football being at its lowest since readmission, Pitso stands out as like, how is this guy so successful? And how is South African football so unsuccessful when we have a product of South African football? Somebody, Safa made Pitso, basically. And he's doing all these great things. He's so talented. And it doesn't translate to the rest of the country. So, yeah, I can say is the one thing South Africans can be proud of 100% right now.
The Pitso factor certainly witnessed by everyone in the media, and we can attest to that because some of our most consumed content was around Pitso, interviews, stories, and again, a testament to what you've outlined there. Lorenz, I have to ask, why was there a parting now? There's still games to be played in the Egyptian Premier League. He could still be on track to win that. Why did this relationship with Ahly have to end at this juncture?
Honestly, if they won the Champions League against all odds, I don't think we would be having this conversation right now. I think that's one factor behind it. Perhaps he felt he didn't get enough support in fighting CAF, in fighting what he said was fighting Motsepe. He has this idea that, you know, Motsepe was up against him, where the club has really distanced himself from that. So I think the parting was now because there was, how can I say, a breakdown in the relationship of some sorts, where they're not on the same path. Certain signings like Percy Tau and Luis have been really scrutinized by their legends, by the pundits, possibly even the board. Al Ahly is a club known to not want to waste money. You know, they don't have a sugar daddy owner like a Qatari a king or whatever that owns the club. It's a foundation. Like, this is their money that they're spending, so they expect value for money. There's a lot of factors behind it. And I think what pushed him over the edge is somebody suggesting that he gets a new fitness trainer, and KB should leave. And he said, no, if you want one of my guys to leave, then we all leave. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of, you know, I think between the board, some said, you know, they're playing ugly football. This is not the Al Ahly way. You know, those guys that hold on to the past, and not being realistic in where they were as a club, in terms of not having an Abu Trika or a Koma or a Motaib that's scoring, you know, 25 goals in the league. But we could argue that Pitso's style of play didn't allow that. He never really has a star player and things like that. Even at Sundowns, never had like a 25, 30 goal striker like we're seeing now with Peter Sharolile in the domestic league. So yeah, so I think he felt that he didn't have the full backing of the board against the media attacks, against the club legends and things like that. And perhaps this was just him saying, you know what, like, I've given you a lot. I've given you 3 Champions League finals, 2 titles, 2 bronze medals. Good luck and see where your next coach takes you. You know what I mean? You've not given me the credit that I deserve. So let's see what the next person can do. And I depart as a club legend. I depart with a goal, with a handshake, with good terms with everyone. The ones that are unhappy to see me go will want me back. The ones who are happy to see me go will want me back, type of thing. You know what I mean? So I think it was just good for both parties to separate now, so that the relationship was still on good terms, and he leaves on his own terms. I mean, where do you hear one of the biggest clubs in the world say our coach has asked to leave? You know what I mean? So he controlled the narrative, and I think that was very important for him after the success that he's given. And I think they're even gonna give him like a tribute of some sorts, if he does manage to go back after he comes back to South Africa. But the last thing that we also heard rumors of is that he had a bit of health concerns. As you can imagine, being in such a stressful, crazy environment like Cairo at the club of that size, it's gonna take a toll on your blood pressure, whatever it may be, your stress levels. It's not normal, and not to have a break from that is definitely going to affect you mentally as well. So many of us wouldn't be surprised if we see him taking a sabbatical before he goes on to his next step.
A sabbatical was something Pep Guardiola did, recharge the batteries, certainly had his pick of clubs. I have to ask you, Lorenz, where do you think he will be looking for his next challenge after his sabbatical?
The thing is, the first day he joined Ahly, a lot of people ask me the question, what if he gets sacked in 1 month? And my response was, it doesn't matter. His CV still speaks for himself, whether he gets sacked after 2 days or 20 months, like he did last year. He would walk into a Esperance. He would walk into a Wydad or a Raja. Perhaps, not like a Morocco or Egypt national team, because there's a little bit of a difference in how fans feel about their domestic clubs compared to their national teams. In terms of pride, they always want to see one of their own coaching, whatever. But yeah, with Esperance having hired Malul last week again after Jaidi was sacked, that kind of closes the door there. We did obviously have Walid, who just won the Champions League against Pitso. So I don't think there's something available for him in Africa right now if he wants to get into a new job. But we've been hearing about interest from Qatar and from Saudi Arabia, where it's quite obvious you're going to be earning enough in 2-3 seasons that's going to set you up financially for the rest of your life. And we always make this joke, Pitso must go to the Gulf for 3 years and then come here and buy a club in the PSL, Pitso Mosimane FC or whatever. So yeah, I think the natural progression for him would be either the Gulf or taking over a big national team, like, your Ivory Coast or your Senegals and things like that, where again his ambitions will be met with the tools as well. I mean, he can come to Bafana, but he doesn't have the tools. He can come to Kaizer Chiefs, he doesn't have the tools to meet his ambitions immediately. And they always say, Pitso must work with money, blah, blah, blah. You don't see Pep going to Brighton or Burnley or whatever. It's a dumb argument, you know what I mean? So you'll go to a top club in Saudi or a top club in Qatar or a top club in Africa or top country in Africa. He's not going to go mess around with a small club in England, or even if that a European opportunity knocks on his door. You know what I mean? He wants to be at the top club and challenging for trophies. So yeah, I mean, his agent, who's his wife, said there's interest from South Africa, but yeah, I don't think it will amount to anything.
Lorenz, do you think that from Pitso's mind, a move to the Gulf would be a big step up from Al Ahly? How, or would that be a sideways step? How do you think he would be? Because, we've spoken about how tactical he is, how strategic he is and everything he does. How would he see that move?
He would see it as a step up because he's acknowledged that Asian football has surpassed African football over the past 10 years. Bigger resources means more tools, like I alluded to, and a bigger opportunity to meet one of his ultimate goals, which is winning the Club World Cup. So, for example, let's say Pitso takes over Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, and he's working with Odion Igalo and these type of players. It's a bigger opportunity than winning it, with Al Ahly, where he's working with a smaller budget. And I think he would definitely join a club where they meet that expectation of like, let's go for something big, let's go for the Club World Cup. You know what I mean? So it would definitely appeal for him if that ambition is to go for a trophy that he's never been able to get before. He says it so many times, his agent says it so many times, his dream is to win the FIFA Club World Cup. And whatever club can offer him that platform and opportunity to do it, I'm sure he'd take that chance and be excited about it.
Lorenz, the story really intrigues me. Listening to your knowledge of this great South African coach that we have, it also makes me very sad to hear that the Bafana job is not up to his interest anymore. But I do understand you when you say there are no tools there. I think, if I must be honest, I think Pitso has told us where he's going. And I think you've alluded to it as well. He's going to go to a place where there are tools to win something big, where the platform is there. I would like to see him push into Europe a bit more. I really would. I think there's an opportunity for this manager. What he's done to go to Al Ahly, he's broken barriers. Never did we ever think this would happen. He's our only shining light, I think, that could break into the European market and make some real noise. But do you think that is on his agenda? You've spoken about the Gulf. There's interest from there. But is there any interest or any whispers about Europe?
Look, there hasn't been any whispers at all. But if there would be interest, if there was like a possibility, I'm sure he would explore it. He would never turn it down. You know what I mean? No matter what I say about joining a small club, it's something he would definitely look at that would pique his interest. But at the same time, after working for 2 decades in football and building your name up, he wants to be respected as well. You know what I mean? So if he is to make that jump to any club in Europe, he wouldn't do it for the sake of it. He wants it to be, he would calculate it. Like, for example, let's say the opportunity comes in the Netherlands, where he has a very strong relationship and background because of the Supersport United times with Feyenoord, where he coached in the youth teams. I think he was coaching Robin van Persie at one point at the Feyenoord under 19s, so the P team. That's a club that he could look at, a PSV or Feyenoord, where he's ingrained in the Dutch philosophy to a certain extent because of his football education. And he would look at that as an opportunity to be at a big club that can win silverware, rather than going to a mid-table club where he might just be going sideways. And I think there definitely is scope for that now. We see like your Vincent companies getting on the Burnley job. Okay, it's in the championship, but it shows that it's possible for a black coach to break the barriers now and get clubs that with serious ambitions that with big budgets and things like that. And something that he mentioned, I'm sure will resonate a lot with people when they think about hiring is he said something about, is Wayne Rooney a better coach than me? You know what I mean? So it's like, guys, actually look at what this person and this person has achieved, and what can he achieve with more tools and more budgets, you know what I mean? So from that perspective, I think he's laid that kind of foundation to say, respect me, and give me what I need to succeed, and I will do the job for you. And something that we didn't mention is that being that first sub-Saharan coach at Al Ahly, or the first black coach at Al Ahly, imagine the enormous pressure that was on his shoulders to succeed. All the people, I mean, even South Africans said, this guy is going to get sacked in 1 month and then he's going to be Chiefs coach. You know what I mean? So he thrives with that type of pressure. And if he were to be given an opportunity in Belgium or Netherlands or Germany at a decent club, I'm sure he would thrive. But at the same time, being more realistic because of his skin tone, the Gulf is just definitely the more viable and the more realistic option for him now.
If I may, you've touched on a couple of points that excite my brain in general, and it's less about Pitso and just more about the philosophy behind who we are as Africans and the opportunities we get to lead, and what we would consider opportunity. Because, like, hypothetically speaking, if we're looking at the Premier League, any of those top 20 teams are the top 20 teams in the United Kingdom, right? And they have a firm belief that it's like one of the top 5 leagues in the world, yada yada. So would any of those teams, because from what you said, it's like saying, even if you got, let's pick a team, and no disrespect to Zayn's missus's club, Brighton, for example. No disrespect, I don't know why Brighton popped into my head, but I'm just trying to think of like a not so sexy club, if I may put it that way. Because like the examples you give in Holland, these are still massive international clubs by any standard. And I love the fact that he may turn down the offer if it didn't come from something that was right for him. I love that. But I like us just to have maybe like a more philosophical conversation, which maybe stays away from Pitso the man, just to more like the opportunities that we think we may be deserving of over the next 3 to 4 years. So we see coaches like Patrick Vieira, and I'm tossing this out to all of us, like just before Lorenz feels like we invited him so we could just hammer him out for every point. But we see people like Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace. We now see our brother coming in, leaving Antwerp and coming into the championship. We've had people like Chris Hughton. But when we talk about world football, the opportunities that we have as Africans, I don't know if we cast our nets as far and wide as we should. Because like you look at like these American spaces like the MLS, you look at the Mexican League, you look at what's happening even like in places like the J League, from where people like Arsene Wenger was able to leave straight out of the J League and come into the Premier League with Arsenal. Sometimes I think the visibility that he may get from Bar Javi, who went into the Middle East and makes his way back, that's because the relationship already existed and they were just like, go cut your teeth and come back home. But don't you think a person like him maybe could say, you know, let me go and win a league somewhere? And any of our coaches, like, and it really doesn't matter anywhere anymore. But you know, you could go cut your teeth in Asia, in South America, North America. It doesn't always have to be Europe. But I think if he went and he won, if Pitso, for example, like to come back and be specific with him, if he went into the MLS and won the MLS, for example, I don't think anybody would have any reason to doubt his quality in terms of his coaching, because the point about Rooney is extremely pertinent. It's saying like, just because somebody was a good player, they're given more opportunities than a person who has a proven track record as a manager. For people aren't prepared to gamble on you because where you are is invisible. Because I was having a conversation with two separate guys today, two separate teams. I went to watch a training session and we were talking about the challenges around coaching. I'm in Cameroon at present, and I was surprised that both coaches didn't know who Pitso was. And so I was saying to them, like, how can you not know? And they were like, but it's not even on TV. We know Ahly, but we only know Ahly when it's the game. And then when it's the game, we actually know more about the players than we do know about the coaching staff. Like, I love the fact that you were able to roll off the tip of your tongue, backroom staff, and all of these teams that come together to make the teams that we see on the pitch play. But sometimes I think we need to cast our net a little bit wider, because I don't know how many of us will get the opportunities. And Patrick Vieira and, you know, why am I forgetting our brother's name? I'm just going blank.
Vincent Company.
Vincent Company. These are two former players. So they're no different to a Rooney. But a Pitso, it's really about a very definitive space that he's occupied and made a name in. And we have 4 or 5 of those across the continent. And they don't even get their national teams sometimes. Like, they're doing phenomenal. The coaches over at Simba right now, phenomenal. When you talk with him in terms of football brain and all of that, amazing. But you'd be hard pressed beyond his club to know who he is, to be able to have a conversation about his philosophy and football. And when we spoke with Pitso, we spoke about this. But I'm more interested in how we accept that a Middle Eastern step would be more, not necessarily progressive, but why we just accept that it should be the done thing, because maybe they might cut a decent check. I don't know if that's the reasoning. Meanwhile, in my opinion, he could go take over. I don't know. We have relationships at Cancun FC. Go take over Cancun FC and win the Mexican league. And I guarantee you, the people who will look, even in Spain, the people who will look up and go, hold up a second, who's that coach? You know, the visibility that will come from it, no matter what he wins in the Middle East, in my opinion, there's very little credit that would be given to him in terms of philosophy or style of play, and there won't be visibility nonetheless. That's just my opinion. I don't know what everybody thinks about that.
Look, there's like a certain shop window where, you know, like, for example, the Premier League takes talent from the Bundesliga and from Ligue 1 now, for example. And in the coaching sector, it's like you said, it's about visibility. He touched on this MLS thing before, where he said Bradley Cornell, former Bafana left back, he coached at University of Johannesburg, a university in South Africa, at a very low level. He was the assistant coach at Free State Stars, assistant coach at Pirates. He went to the MLS, and he became the New York Red Bulls assistant coach. He was approached by Ralph Rangnick to be assistant coach of Manchester United, but he rejected that to start at St. Louis as their head coach in the inaugural season in the 2023 campaign. Pitso has won 3 Champions League and he's not getting that opportunity. But it's about who you know. And Bradley Cornell knows Ralph Rangnick. And that's not to say Bradley Cornell doesn't deserve this. And Pitso alluded might be his skin color. But Bradley Cornell was in the Bundesliga. He was mentored by Rangnick. He got his UEFA Pro license. He did he paid his school fees in working with his coaches. But it's like, how did he get these opportunities? It's about who he knew. You know what I mean? And I think what's been holding African coaches and specifically Black coaches back over the past 20 years is not having a good PR team. It's not having a good agent. It's not having that direct line to these sporting directors. And that's what we're having with the players as well. We have a lot of talented players in South Africa, but there's no connection and there's no trust. You know what I mean? When a team hires a coach, it's about trust as well. Brighton, the unsexy team you spoke about, hired Graham Potter from Ostersund. And that was about trust. Nobody was going to say, oh, Ostersund is good enough. Ostersund manager is good enough to, well, he didn't go directly from Ostersund, but he went via, Swansea or some other club or whatever. But it's that shop window that you're talking about. So let's say Pitso does go to the Feyenoord or the Vancouver or whatever, or in Mexico, yeah, then he can go into those next steps. But I mean, it's about, will he be willing to sacrifice, what he's worth, he feels he's worth. For example, if he goes to a Mexican league, will they pay him what he's worth? Will he be at that top team, or will he be at that mid-table
I
team? You know what
guarantee
I
you, the
mean?
Mexican league is the 7th highest paying league in world football.
Mm,
Do you understand? That's what I'm trying to say is if he can go to Ahly, which is beautiful, it's wonderful. What I'm just trying to talk about is the level of ambition. Because like everywhere I've read, it's like the next progressive step for him is
Yeah.
almost included as Middle East. And for me, all I see there is money. And I'm like, but for the talent that he has, there needs to be visibility to the style of play, because he also said you need tools. So what tools exactly is he going to find in any of those leagues there that will exhibit the philosophy that is ingrained in his person and in his narrative as well? So I'm more encouraging us almost to say, if we have a way of saying, then maybe we go out and find the relationships. That's why I said I have a relationship with Cancun.
Yeah.
To let them know and say, oh, take a look at this gentleman. But
Yeah,
this
it's
acceptance that
definitely,
we almost set a ceiling ourselves, and then we say, well, the opportunity doesn't exist, so I won't go knocking those doors.
yeah.
There are ways in which you can create that. Zayn's at CNN.
Look,
Don't know what you're talking about, big dog.
Look, I do agree completely with this relationship thing, and his wife is his agent, and obviously they have tried to build these relationships with these certain clubs. And at the Club World Cup, I was at obviously every press conference that he spoke to, and he spoke glowingly about Monterrey. He spoke glowingly about Al Hilal, and that was like, kind of like opening up that, hey, I beat your national team coach, Javier Aguirre. You guys got Vincent Janssen and Joel Campbell. I beat you with like a second string team. I beat this one. I beat that one. He always said, look at all these top coaches. This one was at Braga. This one was at wherever. This one was Egypt's national team. I beat you. I beat you. I beat you. You know what I mean? So he kind of planted those seeds that you are referring to in each and every press conference to say, hey guys, give me my flowers, You say this one is a top coach, you say this one is a top coach, but I'm beating them all. You know what I mean? So it's not to say that, oh, he's closing himself off from it, but it's also what you're saying is that those opportunities aren't arriving onto his table. And it is a good question. Like, why wouldn't a top South American team want to be interested in Pitso? Why wouldn't Sao Paulo or Corinthians or Palmeiras in the future be looking at Pitso? But then you get Al Ahly taking South American coaches and European coaches, you know what I mean? So it's perhaps that, how can I say, I don't know how to put it, not a pyramid, but
The football hierarchy.
the football hierarchy. Europe, South America, Asia, wherever they are now, and Africa, you know what I mean? So it's perhaps like, okay, Arsenal is not going to sign a player from ASEC Mimosas in this transfer window. But ASEC Mimosas just sold the player to Red Bull Salzburg, and Arsenal will sign him in 3 years' time for 50 million instead of the 1.8 million they could have signed him for now. So it's kind of like, taking for granted of the standard.
Before we go around the houses for final thoughts, I think we're not going to do this, but on our podcast, we have spoken about an African Super League. We know that this is in the works. We know that there are people who are for it. We know that there are people who are against it. But one of the ideas about being for it is we then have elite league. Our coaches can showcase themselves, where our players can showcase themselves on a strength versus strength, well-resourced, invested in, almost NFL, NBA type of franchise. And maybe when we have the space where we can do that, maybe we'll start to get the validation that we want. I know this is a passion project of Francis. We've done podcasts on this. So go to YouTube, go to Facebook, search On the Whistle podcast. You can go into the archives. It's not old, it's vintage. Pull it out, listen. It's a classic. If you want to get in touch, the way you think Pitso should go. Social media is a wonderful, wonderful thing if used correctly. OTW_podcast at Instagram and Twitter. Let us know what you think. And guys, before we go, final words from everyone before we get in our chariots and off we go. What will Pitso's legacy ultimately be at Al Ahly? Something to celebrate, something to lament, or are we sitting here going, he could have achieved so much more? The mic is open. Final parting shots, everyone.
Can I just say something? The African Super League is also giving football administrators in Africa more money to chow. So more money doesn't necessarily mean more progression in this continent. But anyway, for the final parting shot, I would say
And
me
electricity.
more load shedding, yeah. So the final parting shot, I'm disappointed to see him go. I would have loved to see him at least win the Egyptian Premier League before he left. But he knows his reasons. He's a very intelligent coach, very methodical in the way that he's building his career now. And I think the best is still to come. So it's not something to be somber about. It's something to celebrate that he's added 2 stars to their badge. They are grateful, the majority of their fans and the club. So I don't think it's something that should be looked upon as a mistake or anything.
I'd like to just follow on from Lorenz. I'm not sad to have seen him go. I think he's done enough for the club. I think he's been very successful there. He's given a trophy-hungry club exactly what they wanted. I hope he goes somewhere now and does absolutely nothing. Nothing. I hope he goes and take a rest, sit down, relax, and get people.
Courtney, that's what you do a lot of the time.
That's me, Zayn. That's me. And then get people working for him, because Lorenz spoke a bit earlier on about this hierarchy of where these teams fit, and start pushing his star between this hierarchy. Get people like Francis touting him around at big clubs, not in the Gulf, but where he wants to go. So let's not jump to when the Gulf come with their bags of oil money. Really be clear on what he wants to do, and jumping to the next job may not be the right thing. You know, I think you mentioned this a bit earlier, Lorenz. He may need a break. He went from one high pressure job to the other. There could be a few issues in terms of health in there. Take a break. Go on the sabbatical. They will come knocking. But you've got to have your team working in the background so that they see where your door is.
Was it not on this very podcast when we were interviewing Pitso, when he was saying that when he was first moved to Egypt, the biggest shock was that he no longer could even go out in public anymore. So I can't even imagine the strain he's been under the last couple of years in terms of just being in such a football crazy city and coaching such a football crazy club where you just literally can't even go to a shopping mall without being absolutely mobbed by hundreds of people. I think for me, and I agree with Lorenz, it's such a shame that he wasn't able to get that Premier League title. I think that would have been the one thing that would set him up and say, look, there's absolutely nothing you can criticize me for. But I also think that, you know, maybe like we said, he's a strategic guy. You know, he's quitting the job now whilst a lot of teams are, you know, in their summer break between seasons. So maybe he's seeing that opportunity to move on and kind of pulling the trigger because he senses that. I think, you know, to what Francis was saying, I think you're right in terms of, I wonder if there's a perception thing, particularly around the Gulf, is kind of maybe what the MLS was, you know, 10 years ago, where it's kind of your holiday home for the rich footballers who you kind of want a payday. But I mean, we're seeing, and I think football is slowly starting to learn that actually you can get quality from other places outside of Western Europe. You know, I think of like Ange Postecoglou, who's, you know, went from Australia having no, you know, very, very limited football playing experience, then coaching in Australia, then to Japan. And now he's, you know, winning the Scottish Premier League with Celtic, you know, and you know, talk about football crazy clubs. I mean, that's about as big as you get. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the next 2 or 3 years managing in the Premier League. So I think it would be great to see Pitso, moving to one of these countries and these different places and seeing where he can kind of build his way up through this kind of football hierarchy, which, sadly exists. But I think we also shouldn't be, dismissive of even just going to the Gulf, what an achievement that would be as well, in terms of breaking down barriers, having, again, sub-Saharan Black African coaches going to the Gulf and managing. I think we have to understand, Pitso is, everything he's working at is harder for him. He has to fight a lot more than some of the, he's not, a European plumber coming in and walking into a job that he doesn't deserve. And I think that's why Pitso's so aggressive when he says things like, I beat this guy, I beat him, or when he says, like, don't come into our country unless you've shown your CV and you've won something in your own country. I think that's why, because he has to fight. And I think even if he does go to the Gulf, I hope he has all the success, because I think even that will be breaking down barriers. Even that will be an amazing achievement. So I think, but I do also agree with Courtney. I think the man needs a rest, man. He needs a break.
I think iconic, before I give Francis the mic to round us off, is how I would describe Pitso. That phrase, "they want our bodies but not our minds," is something that so rings true to African footballers and Black footballers and coaches to a certain extent. And Pitso showed, I can think, I can strategize, I can not take a vintage class of players and be successful, not just in the CAF Champions League, but in the FIFA Club World Cup, the highest level of competition he could coach in. He did excellently every single time he was there, getting the bronze medal. I think there's pride as a South African I take in his achievement. There's pride as a Pan-African to see him at that helm. And I know, to build on what everybody has said, the story is still going to continue. It's unwritten. And I can't wait to see him come back. I can't wait to see him strategize. I can't wait to see him wind up people at press conferences. I can't wait to see him get wind up. And I can't wait to see that passion that Pitso brings. He's not a caricature. He's a man who is a giant in this game. And I can't wait to see him back. Francis.
Yeah, I think you guys have said it all, to be honest. Because for me, really, I think he has nothing to prove to anybody. There are very few people who genuinely inspire me by the examples of their careers. And he's one of those. He's also a good man. There's even something to be said for having his wife as his agent. That's also having another woman in a very, very highly masculine world, but also saying, I empower my partner to be the person who speaks on my behalf. There's so many things about him that I genuinely think are a fine example for us all. But most of all, I genuinely also believe that when you have arrived at the very top, as he has, there comes a time where you must take that break, like Courtney advises, not because you're tired, not because maybe you deserve the break, but also because, like what the good leaders of Dubai and the UAE did, after you have built and you've built well, they will come. So those of us who have to do that work, to turn the light towards him, shouldn't be for him to do it. He can take a break, he can sit back, and we can go to work and say, you know what? I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And if those relationships aren't his, it's our duty to shine a light on talent like this, because when he gets wherever he gets to, he always delivers. He's one of those DHL FedEx guys. He delivers. And I think we must be filled with nothing but pride. I really look forward to the day when Ahly regret the day they separated with him. But I also think it would have been a sweeter story if he had won the league. So if there's any tint of, it would be that. But I think overall, the success of the man, the quality of the person deserves nothing but praise. And that's where I'd like to clean.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us around the braai. Ali, Francis, Courtney, lovely seeing your ugly mugs. Lorenz, the job is yours. You'll be hosting next week. I'm on holiday, feet up, enjoying the summer. We'll have you come live from Johannesburg in the cold. No one can see the heater behind you, but I think it is lovely. South Africa does get cold. Johannesburg does get cold. Lorenz, jokes aside, you are always welcome around our braai. You always welcome on the sofa. Thank you for your expert analysis. Just remind people, where can they follow you on social media? I know you've got big followings on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if you're on TikTok yet, but it's time to advertise.
Mute myself here quickly. So Zayn's taking a sabbatical. Is that what's happening here? He's burnt out by the other mugs. So okay, so yeah.
They don't pay me enough for this.
So yeah, Facebook, it's just my name, Lorenz Köhler, Kohler. Twitter, it's Lorenz_KO, and Instagram, I don't really use that much for work, so it's just personal stuff and whatever. So yeah, that's just the two main accounts that I'm using.
And you're not down with the kids, so no TikTok.
I do have a TikTok account, but I don't know how it works yet. I haven't really explored that much. But yeah, I'm starting to sound old myself now.
That's Lawrence's code for I haven't figured out how to monetize.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, I do. If you're interested in South African football, my YouTube channel is starting to pop now. So yeah, that's something to look for. Like, just done a few press conferences.
How do we find this popping channel?
It's just Lorenz Köhler.
What do we search for?
My name, just Lorenz
Nice and
Köhler.
easy.
Yeah, so I've been doing a few press conferences here and there, and I'm getting my equipment now to do some interviews. I want to do a lot of those personal interviews and stuff like that, but yeah, in due time.
Perfect. Lorenz, thank you for joining us. Have a good one, my brother. Gentlemen, we'll see you on the braai next week. Maybe I'll be here, maybe I won't. Salagashle.